So it is lesson 7, part 3, and we're not far from reading week. So we've got our sign-in activity working. I want to add a logout floating action button to our list activity. I'll maybe add it to the bottom right. We'll move this one over to the bottom left. We'll add some code so we can sign out, and then we're just going to try our Google sign-in. We're going to have to deal with our famous code 10 error. So let's open up our list activity first of all. And we're going to open up the XML file where we've got our floating action button. So open this up. And I'm going to change my end constraint to start. So I want my add button on the left side. Want it over here so we can add a new floating action button to the bottom right. That will be our logout button. You don't have to change the position, but I'm going to on my line 33. I'm going to set my current floating action button to be start to start of. So this should move our button from the right edge to over to the left edge of our list activity. So I've got to sign in. Task.task.com. It knows we've already used the account before, so it doesn't ask me for my first name and last name now. Just ask me for my password. And now my floating action button's over on the left. So I want to create another floating action button, but before I do, I'm going to add another material icon to the project. I want an exit button, an exit icon, and then we'll create the floating action button second. So I'm going to open up my project view quickly, and I'll drill down into RES and drawable. So in here, we've got the icons that we've added so far, our list, our add activity, our icons. So if I right click on my drawable folder, I'm going to choose a new vector asset. And this is going to allow me to add one of the Google material icons into the project. When I've done this before, I've tried doing it at the same time as I created a button. It's actually easier if we add the image first and then create the button and include the image on the button second. So right click, RES drawable, and then choose new vector asset. I'll click my clip art icon here. And I'm going to search for, I'll search for exit. So I'm going to use this first one that comes up that says exit to app. You can pick any icon you like. You don't have to use this one. But it makes sense to me, so I'll go with it. I'm going to change my size to 36 by 36 dp. And I'm going to make sure my color is white. So 6 Fs. FF, FF, FF. I'm using clip art. It'll give me the name of baseline exit to app 24. It's got my little arrow pointing to the right. And I'm setting it at 36 dp height and width. And my color is going to be white in full opacity. So I'll leave this screen up for a second. Again, feel free to pick a different icon if you like. You don't have to copy this one. And we'll click next and finish. I'm now going to create a new floating action button. I'll set the ID as log out fab. My width and height will both just wrap the content. I'll use the teal background. So I'll use teal 200. So I'm setting up most of the same properties as with our first floating action button. Our source will now be our drawable I see baseline exit. So the new icon we just added, the new vector asset we just added to the project. I'm going to set my end to end of parent and my bottom also to the bottom of the parent. So this will put the button in the bottom right of the activity. And I'll also set the tint as color white. So our icon will appear white against a teal background. Here it is in the chat. You want, I don't know how that will render in your XML layout file. So I've added the exit icon, and I've added a new floating action button that uses this icon in the bottom right corner of my activity. I'll run it again to have a look. And then we'll need a click event handler so that when we click, it signs us out of Firebase, takes us back to the sign-in activity. So I'll sign in again. I'll put in an invalid login just to make sure that's working properly. So it tells me my password is incorrect. In this case, when I put in the proper password, I sign in. Now our add button is here. This should be app tint. That's why it's not appearing as white. So here's my button. It's got the right icon. Make sure your tint is app tint rather than Android tint. So I want to write a click handler for this floating action button. We've already got a click handler for this one. Jumps us over to our new activity. So I'll go and write the click handler now in my list activity. So I'll put it in on create. We've already got a click listener for our add. Well, let's try this first. We're going to call Firebase auth.signout. Whoops, sorry. We've got to get our instance first and then call sign out. And then we can just call finish, because this should take us to the previous activity in the stack, which is our sign-in activity. Let's try it this way. And our sign-in activity should display the sign-in buttons again once we're signed out. We'll try it like this first. Throw it in the chat for you. If your fingers are getting too tired to type a 3-line method. I know, it's Friday. Almost at the finish line, I promise. So we'll run the activity again. We'll try our email sign in one more time. So now I'm going to sign out. Okay, the problem is we've gone back, but Firebase, their UI isn't really recognizing the status state of our user because it's not bringing these up. So rather than only calling finish, I am going to finish, but I want to reload sign in. Because it's in its current state, I want to reload it so onCreate gets called again, so it brings the providers back up. There may be an easier way around this, but this will work. So I'll try this one more time. And this time when I click log out, I should get the sign in options reappearing rather than getting a blank sign in activity where now I'm stuck. So I'll sign in. And now when I sign out, it reinitializes our sign-in activity. Now, we don't actually have any code on the list activity that checks for a user. There's really no way for them to get here unless they get through the login activity now. It's not like in a browser where there's a link, someone could type the address of a particular internal page and go there. If we wanted to check, I won't put it on all the pages, but I could add it to on start. I could add an authentication check if I wanted, just to double check to make sure that nobody could access this activity if they weren't signed in. So I'll add this. It's kind of optional. And I won't add it to the restaurant and main activity. So we'll just import Firebase and auth, and then we can check if our user is null. So if our user is null, we'll just grab the code up here from our log out fab. So reload the sign-in activity. I'll throw this in the chat. So I'm going to add this code to my on start. So every time the activity starts, if the user isn't signed in, take them out of here. And I will apply this later to, I will want to apply it to my main and restaurant activities. In the interest of time, I'm not going to do that right now. So the last thing I want to do is try the Google sign-in. It's set up. We've configured Google, but it's code 10 error time, boys and girls. So I'll click sign in with Google. It's going to ask me to put in a Google account credential. It's checking my device for Google accounts, which there aren't any right now. So this should authenticate me with Google, but with Google's login API, but it's not going to let me into the app because of our missing fingerprint. I'm not sure if this is ever going to complete. So try it on yours. Okay, finally. So I'll use a Google account. I cannot help you there, Daniel. Would be the same credential you used to sign into the Firebase console. So I just got a notice on my phone saying confirm whether it's you trying to sign in. So it actually just sent me a message on my phone saying, yes, check your phone. So I'll say yes to this. I did tap yes, so I'm not sure what's happening. My emulator is just really slow. Yeah, I'll turn my camera off. Maybe that'll help. No. Okay, well, let's go. You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and add the fingerprint, and maybe I'll try again. I showed you the code 10 error already, I think. Okay, yeah, so it's just my emulator. Okay, did you get a code 10 error? Okay, so here's how to fix it. So in Android Studio, this is the last thing we have to do in our project. We don't even have to code anything. You should have a little Gradle window over here on the right, little Gradle tab. If you don't see it, you can turn it on somewhere here. Tool under View, Tool, Windows, and Gradle. I've got it over here. So open up Gradle, expand your project, expand tasks, and then expand Android, and then you get an option here with a little settings icon that says Signing Report. So double click Signing Report. It opens this little run window, and here at the bottom it gives you a few versions of the key, but it's actually the same. So the first one is a debug config. There's your SHA-1. There's your debug key. I think the key is the same in all of them. So copy the SHA-1 key. Just highlight it and copy it. So copy that value, and then we need to go to the Firebase console. So copy the SHA-1. Like I said, you'll have 3 versions of it, but it's going to be the same in all cases. So it doesn't really matter which one you copy. And now if we go to our project settings, so beside project, click the little settings icon, click project settings, and then scroll down under this section. It's got a general section. And down here in the Android app section, there's an add fingerprint button. Click that. Paste in your fingerprint. It should recognize it as SHA-1 and save. This now connects your app, your Android app, to your Firebase project with this digital fingerprint. Oh, this finally came up. It just took forever. So I'm going to run my project one more time. My Google sign-in should work. Okay, if you already had the SHA in it, great. So I'm going to try again. And if my Google sign-in is working, then we're where we want to be for today. Maybe I may even have to try a different emulator because this one is not being very cooperative. So if yours is running and you can sign in with Google Sign-In, that's great. Markers are spinning. There is no quiz for this lesson. I'm not giving you guys a quiz over reading week, but I do want you to be working on your apps. Okay, let me stop this nonsense and I will try it in another emulator. Let me go back to my app. Okay. Okay, Delano, I see your note. Just give me a second here. I'm going to try one more time to get this to run. Okay. Seems a little more responsive. Okay, that worked. Great. Okay, Mark, then you said make sure the fingerprint is accurate. So I'll just need to verify my sign in on my device again. Yep, just make sure you didn't miss a character. So I should be able to sign in. If your Google sign-in is working, and you have no questions, then get out of here and have a good reading week. Be sure you're working on your app. Daniil, yes, it's a bit, it's the darn Android Google Smart Lock. I've tried to disable it on mine and it wouldn't work. So I have to figure out a way around this. Once you sign in and add your Google account, you can remove your Google account from the device settings on the emulator. That will sign you out. So far, that's all I've been able to do. I would like to show mine working, but my emulator is not being very cooperative. I think I've done what I need to do, but I'm going to maybe run it on something else. I'll try running it on a tablet emulator. So yes, the Google sign-in will keep signing you in. I've tried disabling that auto Google sign-in with the smart lock. So far, I haven't been able to do it. It's annoying. So don't worry about it if it's doing that. Yep, have a great reading week. Thanks for all your input in the chat today. Edwin was super helpful. Mishem, we can talk when I need to get this finished first, and I'd like to show it. You too, Ken. Thanks again for your input. Yes, Lynn, we can look at that as well. Okay, that's great, Jamie. Have a great reading week. So I'm going to try again here with Google. Okay, that's great, Lily. You too. I'd like to show mine working, but my emulator's got to cooperate with me. Yes, I can stay and help people who have questions. Thanks, Sitaram. And thanks for your really helpful input earlier in the class. That was great. Okay, so now I can finally sign in with Google. I get no code 10 error because of my fingerprint. All right, I'm going to stop the recording, and I'm happy to take some questions. I will deal with the questions related to the lesson first. Okay, so Lynn, why don't you go ahead